Hello and welcome to the show. I am Terry Ann Russell, your host today of the Healing Heart Initiative, and I'm here with Lisa Saylan. Lisa is a holistic healer and owner of Soul to Soul. She's a Usui and Karuna Reiki master teacher, a licensed massage therapist, reflexologist, intuitive healer, hypnotherapist. You sound a lot like me, but you trained me. So Lisa is also my Reiki master teacher who trained me, I think, gosh, back in 2016, around there. And Lisa also assists others to move through challenging shifts, reducing stress, and expanding their spirituality and wellness. So Lisa, welcome to the show today. I'm excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really an honor. And I love the fact that you mentioned that I was your teacher because you're an example of the great works that transpire when someone's in the position of teaching. You get to see people blossom and spread the light on the planet and help others through really challenging times. And to me, that's the most rewarding part of what I do is watching others succeed and help others. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, definitely. So let's dive right in. I want to start with your
Okay.
path and your journey. Were you aware of what was happening when you had a spiritual awakening or you were changing and shifting? And how old were you?
Well, I was 11. It,
Wow.
it probably happened before that, but I was 11 when I had a really interesting kind of mind-blowing experience. I was not uh, I was a relatively happy child, but I was in unhappy circumstances. Let's put it that way. There was adversity in my life. And I just didn't want to be on the planet. And I knew that in the religion I was raised in, which was Catholicism, that, well, suicide's a sin and you go to hell. And so I was like, well, I'm not going to kill myself. But I had so much faith that I thought maybe I can just pray to God and just keep praying, take me home, take me home, take me home. And, he'd take me home. And during that experience, it was, of course, night. I was in bed. And the next thing I knew, I was just surrounded by the brightest light. It was blinding, blinding, blinding light. And accompanying that was this sense of love that doesn't even exist on this planet. It was love, it was peace. I felt safe, I felt protected. And I knew just intuitively that I was in the presence of God. And I was so filled with gratitude. And I was like, thank you so much. I realized I was home. And then I heard, you have to go back. And I was like, no, that's not part of the deal. I want to stay where I'm at. It's really cool here and it sucks there. And I heard it a couple of times. And again, I did not want to leave, but obviously, I was laying in bed and I heard myself take a deep inhalation and I was back in my bedroom and I thought, wow, that was something I can't explain. And the beauty of it was that I knew without a shadow of a doubt that there was a higher power. I knew that there was a love that was all encompassing, that would await me one day. And I it didn't mean I developed trust. It didn't mean I didn't have emotions. No, 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 no. My journey was much longer than that. But at least it gave me that sense of hope, is what I'm going to say. And as I went through life, I knew I was a little different, but I also, this is how you find the blessing and everything. Despite the adversity in my childhood, it made me hypersensitive. And being hypersensitive can be a blessing if you can find the blessing in it. And what I mean by that is I was so sensitive to everything. And, I probably showed it emotionally. I probably cried a lot. I don't know. I know I looked sad in a lot of photos. So much to the delight of my parents, I might add. But, through that all, and through all the waves of adversity and the waves of being hypersensitive, what I realized was that made me sensitive to what was going on in the environment, in other people's lives. I got really quiet and still, and I learned that I had this ability to know things. And I mean, I honestly, I think there were times in my life I was made fun of. I remember people thinking I was a witch or thinking that, Satan, was
Mhm.
confusing me. And I never believed any of that because of the experience I had. But it doesn't mean I wasn't hurt by those allegations from others.
Right.
I was. But again, I just kept trudging forward and I lived my life. And I mean, I had a great career in television and film. I had so much fun. But I had an accident that I used to be a triathlete and I had an accident and it ended my athletic career, but I was able to parlay that because I was already in television and film into a sports television
Wow.
career. So it's just been a series of really moving through things and seeing the blessing in things, trusting God, letting go, and a number of other things. But I've known for quite a while that I was a little different, but I also believe we are all capable of everything that you and I do. I believe we're all telepathic. I believe we're all intuitive. You just have to refine those skills.
Right.
But
No,
if
I agree.
yeah, and if
I
you've had
agree.
something horrible happen to you, and I know you've had some things happen in your life, those really develop our skills even more.
Yeah, and it gives you a sense of empathy. I mean, I think before we were empathetic, right? But it gives you more of a sense of compassion, I have found. I'm glad you mentioned some of the adversity. I think a lot of times people look at us and our life looks a certain way, especially with social media today. And it looks this specific way, and they're like, oh, it must be so easy for them. And I always explain to people that the spiritual journey is not an easy path. The
Mm.
ones who have chose to come here and awaken during this time particularly, there's a lot of ebbs and flows. It's not just a one linear line path to get you to where you need to go. So that adversity sort of is behind you, driving you, right? It's pushing you to where you need to be. I want you to tell me how, because I find that adversity really brings in these profound heart transformations, right? Through that pain, there's a blessing, you said. I talk about that a lot with the death of my son because he would always tell me there's beauty in the pain. And I was like, how could that be? But I was able then to start to shift and change and see that beauty. So I want you to talk a little bit about how you were able to shift into that space of, oh, this is beautiful, what's happening.
Uh, is there any other choice at a certain point? I mean, you can wallow in self-pity. I mean, I was a wallower at one time. I mean, a guy could break up with me when I was younger and I could be crying about it for months. Don't ask. Um, but that seems kind of silly. But when it's greater adversities, the number one thing I believe is I've had to learn to allow myself to go through the emotions, to be compassionate with myself, even if the emotions look ugly, if you will. Uh, if we don't like how we're responding, I just have a great deal of love and compassion for myself. And I do what I call fire walking through a situation that's adverse. And I got this from watching people who walk on hot coals. And if
Mhm.
you observe them, they don't stand on the coals every few seconds. No, they walk so quickly. And there's usually something they're looking at the end of the path that they're focusing on. They're not focusing on the coals. They're not focusing on, oh my gosh, I might burn my feet. They're focusing on the destination. And the destination is being through whatever they've just gone through. And so
Right.
that's how I try to approach things. And again, it doesn't mean that it doesn't look turbulent initially because it can. Um, and honestly, when I have spiritual people tell me, oh, you need to rise above this or you need to do that, I'm like, you know what? Time out. I am allowed to take my time through my grieving process. I'm allowed to experience this and understand it and see where it originated so I can eradicate it. So those are some of the things that I've done, but most importantly is on the spiritual path. I've learned a lot. So that I can help others. And I use those things in my life. I mean, faith is number one, but Reiki has always been there for me. Yoga, mindfulness, golly, there's so many healing tools that I have used, and I will go to any meetup, by the way. if somebody's offering something that can help us evolve. So I think being open-minded and again, reframing, so if I were to say, oh, this is terrible, I can always turn it around and go, yes, but look at this beautiful planet. Look at all the diversity. Look at how many birds there are. Look at how many plants there are. Look at all the foods we have. Look at the aromas from like I just get turned on by the earth and the
Yeah,
celestial heavens, so
of
yeah.
course. No, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. So many times I think people want to rush through it, right? They just want it to be over. It was painful. It's ended. Say it's a relationship or it's a career. I just want to be on to the next thing. They don't want to feel it. That's what I've found with a lot of my clients is their heart is closed off and they don't want to feel it. And I think, like you said, when you take that time to, so yes, thank you for sharing that. Taking that time to grieve through those processes, I find is so really necessary to see that beauty. We have to feel it. We have to experience it, right? We have to send love to ourselves and compassion to ourselves. Often we are so good with doing that for others, but not ourselves. And that's something I think I've seen my clients struggle with. I've struggled with. So thank you for sharing that. What would you say were some defining moments specifically that you learned to really trust, like something you were like, wow, how am I going to get through this? And how am I going to trust? Like similar to the experience you had when you were a child.
Whoa. That's kind of a big question because it's happened in stages throughout my life. And basically, like, let's use the term diversity, adversity, not diversity, but I'm pro diversity, by the way. When there's adversity, our perception of it shifts. And what was adversity to me at one time is no longer adversity to me. So as we grow, as we expand, as we come back into being our natural, authentic selves connected to divine source, it gets easier. I learned to let go of shame. I learned to let go of blame. I learned to let go of guilt. So there have been so many opportunities that were adverse that I've had to push through, and some of them were tougher than others. I mean, I had a neighbor who committed suicide, and it took me a while to process that. I felt so helpless, really, and I felt like, wow, I wish survivor's guilt. I wish I could have done something that could have helped him. But he came to me after he passed, and he said, I know this is hard for you, but I need you to respect what I did because I couldn't find any other way out of the darkness, any other way out of the depression. And I thought, wow, you just gave me the most beautiful gift. And I've had people say to me, well, how do you know that's not your imagination? And I'm like, who cares?
Right.
There was a gift in what I received. So it doesn't matter how I perceive it. I received a blessing from him basically saying, don't dwell on this. Let go of your own self remorse because it really wasn't about me. It was about him. And those are the kinds of things that have propelled me to want to help people more, I'd say.
Right.
Yeah. But I mean, God, have I gone through some stuff? Goodness, woman, yes. But
I know.
trust in God is number one for me. And also, like I said, turning off the chatter in the mind. So things like meditation, things like yoga, things like yoga nidra, any of those things are pathways to calming our mind and turning off that redundant cycle that we have of telling ourselves negative things over and over and over and over again, reframing them.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I've been through so much, it's boring, but
And you can look on back on it and see how much you've grown through those experiences. I know for me, when I started my meditation journey, it was strictly just to relax. I didn't need it. I wasn't trying to connect. I wasn't trying to do anything spiritually. I was under a lot of stress. My daughter was sick. I was going through a divorce. I just wanted to relax. But through that experience of quieting my mind, right, I was able to open up so much within me and then be able to connect and go through Reiki. I mean, when I started Reiki, honestly, it was very selfishly, it was to help her. I just wanted another way. Traditional medicine had failed us, and I needed another way. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about what I share, is because there are all these alternative ways, and people really don't know about them. And when you get to a point, what I find is you're really sick, like her, and I needed something else. What was there? And I prayed and I prayed and I prayed, and God answered my prayers when He brought me to Reiki, to you. It was so perfectly aligned. I can look back on it now, 8 years later, and see how perfectly aligned it was. But in the beginning, no, I was just doing that to just ease myself, relax, right? Go be a little bit more stressless in my life. Um, so I want to talk about the mind and the body a little bit, because you do a lot of different things like me.
Mhm.
And I want you to share a little bit how you notice how the mind and the body connection is
Okay.
such a pivotal
Well,
aspect in your healing. Because, I think a lot of people think it's one or the other. It's like, oh, I have to get this in order for this to happen. And really, as you go on your path and you grow on your journey, right, you see the connection of that reframing or learning to have a different perspective. My son always tells me the higher perspective of thinking, if you will.
mhm. Well, that's, for me, it's the holistic approach. And I think you recall from when I taught, I talk about the subtle energies and how everything originates in the ethers, and we can consider that God. And then there's thought. And I always tell my students, thoughts in and of themselves are innocuous. They're just thoughts. We have 50 million of them per day. I can't even tell you how many we have per minute, but we're always thinking. And then we have emotion, which is a denser energy. And so emotionally laden thoughts, obviously, are going to have more of an impact on us because we respond to that energy. And then those emotionally laden thoughts can drop down into the physical. It can drop into the body. So I've learned so many different modalities, including John F. Barnes, MFR therapy, where basically you see that the body can store trauma on the cellular level. And it can be emotional trauma, it can be mental trauma, spiritual. Some people have had some really bad spiritual experiences. It could be physical. And it's also how our thoughts impact that. And I'm going to give a quick little example, which is I once had two people who were related who came to my office, and one of them said during the session that they were an alcoholic. And I said, why do you believe that is? And they said, well, because my father was an alcoholic. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so that person went to AA. And then someone else in their family was not an alcoholic. And I said, and they don't drink at all. And I said, so why is that? And they said, because my father was an alcoholic. So you can see how two people in the same family both had an alcoholic father, and one went down the path of being an alcoholic and the other one chose not to. So I don't, personally, when people tell me things like, well, I have the genetic predisposition, I'm like, yes, but that gene doesn't have to turn on. And guess what? We can turn it off. And we have so much cellular turnover that we have to believe that we can create fresh, new, healthy cells in our body. So for me, there's a real deep connection, but you hit the nail on the head when you talked about meditation, calming you and helping you get through things with your daughter. I think, I have a sister who was born with a syndrome. So my mother spent a lot of time in hospitals, and that's really what opened my heart to wanting to give. I wanted to give back to the Children's Hospital because my sister spent so much time in the hospital and we had a lot of people helping us. And I believe under those stresses like that, when we try to just calm ourselves, we are able to take a breath, take another breath, and allow for balance to return. Yeah. But if we stay in that stress state, oh my gosh, people gain weight, people get pathologies, they have all kinds of things that happen. And let's face it, we live in a stressful environment. we can have environmental stressors, we can have people as stressors, we can have institutions as stressors. And we can't just cut ourselves off from society. You know, we have to live in society. So we need these other tools to help us move through those things more gracefully. And I love that yours just came to you and opened up your journey. And I think that that's the real blessing for you, right? Your daughter is the reason why your life has expanded the way it has in so many ways. And by the way, she is gorgeous, and it's so amazing to see her grow up from a little girl.
Thank you. I can't believe it. Um, yeah, she was, I truly believe, you know, having her at 40 years old after having three sons, she was a gift from God. I always felt that about her. Oh, I'm getting chills. I always felt she was brought here to show me, to mirror to me what it really is to be a healed child, and to watch her through the eyes of her inner child and to enjoy that with her. But it's been a blessing. I mean, without those experiences that I had with her, I would have never been the person that I was destined to become. And then Anthony passing as well. That was just another instance in my life that required me to go deeper into that healing, deeper into what it was that was holding me back still. Because even though I was living in Sedona and living my life, I still had a lot of healing to do from all the trauma that I had endured. And so when I can look back on it now, yes, it's been a beautiful journey. But going through it at the moments, I think just taking it moment by moment. Even now, I try not to think too far ahead, because it's like I want to enjoy and be present in what I'm doing. So thank you. Thank you for saying that. The holistic approaches, they're amazing. Talk a little bit about yoga nidra, how you incorporate that into your daily routine.
Oh, wow. Well, no day is like the day before. So I release expectations. I even release routine in a way, because I have a practice, and so I'm helping people on a regular basis, and because I'm teaching a lot, I'm constantly involved in that realm. But yoga nidra for me, the first time I took a yoga nidra class, it was from a friend who is a yogi. And I thought I was going to go crazy, because when they do the rotation of consciousness, and it's like, relax right toe, right grand toe, second toe, third toe. I thought, oh my God, if he goes through the whole body like this, I'm going to like scream. Um, that was years ago. Now I love it. It's so relaxing. And I was taught by a young man from India. And his approach was just, he himself is beautiful, and his approach is so beautiful and so calm. And I learned about how they view manifestation and intention. And basically, it's called a sankalpa. And you plant a seed, and during the meditation, you're watering and nurturing the seed. And then that's it. You forget all about it and just trust that it's going to happen. And guess what? It happens. Asana practice in yoga. I mean, obviously, I'm a yoga teacher, but I don't teach large groups per se. I do lead large meditations and sound healings and stuff like that. But yoga in and of itself was something that was introduced to me as a child. My mom did yoga. My grandmother did yoga. So of course I was in there with my mom. I mean, you have a daughter, you know what that's like. Your kid just does what you do, right? And I saw it more as a form of flexibility and exercise. But again, if you're flexible in your body, you're flexible in your mind, right?
Absolutely.
And so those things, I don't make myself meditate every day, but I'm in a meditative state most of the day. And I do a lot of long distance healing as well. So that's in a meditative state where you're connected to source. So those things have helped me. I used to do those more actively on my healing journey, but now my healing journey looks different. Of course, I use a life coach. I receive treatments regularly. I do get massage. I take care of I go get facials. I get reflexology. Anything that I do, I receive from others because I know it works. So I invest in myself in a holistic way, I will go to other people's sound healings. I will go to other people's yoga nidra sessions. And I'll even look things up online. Like I love Gaia.com. I hope I can plug them
Mhm.
here, but I love them because it's a tremendous resource for me.
Right.
So that's how it looks for me. But prayer is big, I just like connecting to God in the morning and I like connecting to God in the evening. And during the day, trust me, I have lots of opportunities to connect to God because people can be vexing.
They can, and they're very stressful. Let's be honest, it's a stressful world we live in.
Yeah.
And we were just talking earlier before the show about how Phoenix has really grown and boomed, and there are so many people, and there's construction everywhere. So it's really stressful here. So I think the work that you do is so wonderful to be able to share it with the world. I want you to talk a little bit about how sound healing affects, how that frequency affects our bodies, our hearts, how our heart specifically is in tune with what those frequencies are doing.
Oh, wow. Again, really deep questions because I look at everything as a vibratory tool. So not just sound, but essential oils have a vibration. The tuning forks have a vibration. Sound bowls have a vibration. The gong. What I have found with the gongs in particular, because I have three of them, when people are receiving, the wave of energy hits anything that is stuck or blocked. Okay. And it helps break up the stagnant energy. Yeah.
Mhm.
And our heart is an electromagnetic generator. Okay. And the heart responds to vibrations around us. And we're even seeing this in the medical community. Think about the number of tools that they use where they use sound and vibration, like to break up kidney stones or something like that,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So even the medical community is starting to see that vibrations will impact people. And there's a great book called The Miracle of Water. Dr. Emoto basically took it into the laboratory. And what he did is he took molecules of water and he subjected them to sound, to frequencies. And you can see what happens on a cellular level to these water molecules when they are subjected to beautiful frequencies of light, of sound, energy, basically, and how beautiful the formations look. And yet, when you put really, I want to say, dark or dense,
Mhm.
negative kind of vibrations. And if you're wondering what that is, just listen to a horror movie soundtrack. You're gonna find it, okay? Because it's meant to make you feel afraid. It's meant to, get your adrenaline going and make you feel frightened, right? But when we get into the calming, soothing frequencies, we naturally start shifting. The stagnancy breaks up if we are willing, and even when we're unwilling. And when we're unwilling, people might go, "Ooh, that was hard. Like I felt a little,
Mhm.
unsettled during that." And I always go, "Good, that's great that you felt unsettled because it means that we're creating shift." So the heart itself, it has its own beat. That's why we respond to like a drum beat, right? For shamanic
Yes,
journeying and stuff, right? And it's very soothing. And why not? Why wouldn't it be when we're in the womb, we are hearing our mother's heartbeat? Thump, thump,
exactly.
thump, thump, thump,
Yeah,
thump. And that's really the rhythm of life. I believe even the earth has a heartbeat, you know?
absolutely. Very beautiful. So, finally, what advice can you give someone when they have some adversity in their life, um, and what it really means for their healing journey?
Okay. So, number one, don't try to do it on your own. You can, but there's so many beautiful people out there who are willing to help you. So find what resonates with you. I would say that's the first thing. The second thing is don't give up. You know, uh, find modalities that will help calm the monkey brain.
Mhm.
Reframe, focus on beautiful things. In Reiki, we have the principles just for today. I will be grateful for my many blessings. Just for today, I will not worry. Just for today, I will not be angry. I mean, there are many interpretations of this. Just for
Mhm.
today, I will be kind to my neighbor and every living thing, including myself. just for today, I will do my work honestly. Those are the principles that I kind of live by, you know, and I think the commandments are important, but that isn't going to appeal to everybody. But I think there's wisdom in all the books of well, great faith, I'm going to say. But basically, you know, find people to surround yourself with who will support you, because you may have to leave a situation, and that's going to be hard, you know? So get support with that so that you can move out of something that is constantly stressing you and move away from some of the things we were taught, such as, well, don't leave your job until you have another one. Well, if you're really upset and negative and feeling down all the time from your
Right.
job, that just doesn't make sense, you know? Because
Exactly.
any interview you go on, people are going to feel that. So get your ducks in a row, have some savings, do whatever you need to do to prepare yourself for that shift. And basically, pretend you're a bird if you have to, you know, and feel like a bird riding, you know, the I can't even think of the word, but you know, when they're in the air, they're riding up and down, you know, and they're not afraid when they take a dip. I mean, we are when we're in a plane and it drops, you know, a couple
Right.
thousand.
It's meant much different. They're just like so graceful, I guess is the word.
Well, they're not the vectors. They're not afraid of them. So we have to learn to not be afraid. But again, get help. You know, don't give up, get help. And it can be anything. It can be going to a comedy club, for crying out loud. I mean, if you laugh, that's good medicine. Get up and move, drink
Yes.
water, eat nutritious food, exercise, do what you can. And if you're so depressed you can't get out of bed, then sit in bed and wiggle your fingers and toes. Um, Play some uplifting music. If you're really anxious, find tools that will help you move away from your anxiety. So that's basically the advice I can give you. And whether you believe it or not, wake up each day and just say out loud, I am really happy. I have a beautiful life and I'm doing a great job living this life. And
Well, thank you.
be
That
your
that
own cheerleader, you know?
talking about that laughter really is the best medicine, isn't it?
It really is. And so, yeah, don't judge what you're laughing at. Just, I mean, try not to laugh at stuff that's mean, you know, 'cause that's not coming from the heart, right? But you can laugh at things that are ridiculous or how we respond in society. Yeah, just bring in the laughter, bring in the jokes, and
Yeah,
bring in a renewed love of life,
of
is what
life.
I'm going to
Yes.
say. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I love that. Thank you so much for being here, for sharing yourself and your story. You're such an inspiration to others. I really wanted you to come on here and share some of that light that I see. And so thank you all for joining us today, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you so much. Many blessings to you and your family.
Thank you, you too.
Namaste.